The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDenaRadio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Wednesday, the 30th of October. CJ Baumgartner with Corey Tackman on All Hallows Eve's Eve.
No. Isn't it All Hallows Eve today because then Halloween's tomorrow?
That's true. Also, yeah. Okay, so this is All Saints Eve. There we go.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, there we go. This is All Hallows Eve.
By the way, Morning Sports Desk brought to you by pizza. I'm eating it. I don't care how unprofessional it is. I'm starving.
We've locked him here in the radio station since like 5 a.m, giving him no food. It's surprising he's made it this long.
I forgot Matt was coming today. I was going to leave early.
We got you here. We got you going. And Corey, while you're eating, I'll just use this as an opportunity to talk about my volleyball game last night. Wadena Deer Creek played Hawley in a classic. The game didn't start till dang near 8:30, by the way, because Barnesville and DGF played in a nice game themselves. DGF came back to win the final 2 sets. They beat the 5th-seeded Barnesville Trojans, the top-seeded Rebels, going to the section final, which played in Moorhead High School. By the way, I don't think you've been to Moorhead High School at all, Corey, but they have a brand new gym there, and it looks fantastic.
Well, I in addition to listening to the match last night, Spud TV had it on YouTube.
Spud.
So I was doing the combo platter of listening to the radio and watching it on the television at the same time. It looks gorgeous. Is it legal? I don't care. But if it is illegal, I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, that gym is nice. It was weird that they had the walking track lights off. It kind of threw me off.
Yeah.
So it felt darker in there because there's like no windows in the gym, or there's no like sunlight that's coming in.
Yeah, they are kind of bunkers, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a little bit like some gyms have, like the Wadena Deer Creek gym lets some light get in there, and then they have the big glass windows like right outside, so like it's in that way. But anyway, beautiful facility, walking track all around. They had the big scoreboard up on the side, 4 little scoreboards on each corner, jumbotron up top. And the one thing I do love is when places like that host, and DL did it too for Section 8 AA basketball a couple of years ago. I love it when those schools that have access to like really good production of games, like every time there was a kill, every time there was a point, every time there was an ace, the team's logo would pop up and it would change, and the team, like, they would use the team's logos, because they don't have to do that. They just could operate the scoreboard and shut the jumbotron off. Like they don't have to do that, and they got everybody on staff to like put together that effort for these games, and I do appreciate that when they do that. So in turn, I appreciate when Spud TV will like also do that, because they don't have to.
Right.
They offer to do it. So as a radio guy, yeah, I would rather just prefer people listen to our calls, but if you can sync it up with the video, then why not?
Well, I will tell you that as I was trying to get things organized last night, that the Spud TV guy kept calling him Gravelli. And I was like, well, I definitely can't listen to this anymore.
Gravelli Vanelli.
But you had a 5-setter.
Yeah, 5 sets. It was a classic. Wadena Deer Creek lost the first set. They took the second set, lost the third set, got the fourth set back after they stormed out to like 10-3 and just kind of ran away with that fourth set. And then in the fifth set, just kind of a microcosm of the night, right? Like they played generally well in that fifth set. There was just a couple miscues. Hawley played well in that final set, but I think the biggest microcosm of the night is just the Wolverines, and maybe just over the course of their season, they're good. Excellent volleyball team, not taking anything away from them. They got to 21 wins on the year, got to a Section 8 AA semifinal game.
Yeah.
Awesome season. The one weakness you could say, or just maybe the area that they needed improvement the most, was in their secondary hitters outside of Peyton Gravel. Jada Dykov and Kennedy Ness have had good moments all year long. They've been very nice for that team, but it's just finding that consistency, especially when number 4 is off the floor, that they've had a tough time with that. Jada and Kennedy have gotten good attacks off. They've just had ones that kind of floated a little bit, went out of play, and ended up going points for Hawley. And when Peyton Gravel went off the floor in that fifth set, she didn't come back on, and Hawley took advantage, and they raced out, and they ended up clinching that fifth set victory. And Wadena Deer Creek played a great game all around.
Mm-hmm.
Hawley's just a really good team. And as we've talked about, you only play really good teams at this point in the campaign. Wadena was great, but Hawley was just better. And that's kind of what you chalk it up to for each team. Hawley was really great in the front row. They did some nice things. And overall, it was just not the Wolverines' night in a couple areas. And Hawley was able to make a couple plays. But in no way should they feel bad about how they performed, because my goodness, that was a fun volleyball game. You ever get that, Corey, when you get to, whether it's football or basketball or volleyball, whatever, baseball you're calling, when you get to those big moments, like you call for a break and then you just kind of try and like take a breath, but then you're like, oh, I'm getting, like, you kind of feel into the game with everybody else, like your hand, not like shaking, but you can just kind of feel it like, oh, like we're in this. And when I took a break to go into the fifth set, my hand was just jittery a little bit. The pen holding hand. I was like, this is fun. This was a fun match.
Yeah, it's what it's all about. It's what everybody goes through, right? It's true for coaches and players and fans. You go through those games in late September and early October in hopes that you get to play in late October and into November, even if that's the case. The same is true for us. Like we're trying to, we want to be able to broadcast these important games for all of the reasons that it's important for schools and whatever, but also selfishly, like, wouldn't you want to call the Super Bowl?
Right.
Like, the bigger, more important the game it is, the more fun it is, and the more effort you are able to put into it just out of the sheer emotion. So, yeah, man, they're really fun.
Really, really fun. Congratulations to the Wolverines on a great season.
Yes.
And congrats to those seniors. That's a big senior class that Wadena Deer Creek is graduating with a 3,000 setter and Addie Gravel, with a libero in Montana Karsten, and Jenna Dykoff was on that team, Addie Carr, and I'm sure I'm missing some of the others, but there's a good crop of seniors that they are letting go, and it's going to be tough to replace. But the thing about Wadena Deer Creek volleyball is they always have somebody ready. So till next season.
That's the best part about high school sports, is it's somebody else's turn next year.
Right. Somebody else's turn to put on that different color jersey. Somebody else's turn to set up the offense. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun season. So next year. All right, Corey, let's pivot things over to the one volleyball team in our listening area left in the Park Region Conference, the Sebeka Trojans.
Sebeka Trojans come away with a 3-0 victory over Browerville Eagle Valley. 23, 18, and 20 were the scores of those 3 sets, CJ. 3-0 is not indicative of the competitiveness of that match. I mean, as you can hear from those scores, even those scores probably aren't indicative. I mean, we were talking about in most of the match where it would be 1-0, 1-1. 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4. Like, it was just this like slow crawl up the ladder. And then what would happen is Sebeka, being a very good team, obviously, all of a sudden they would rattle off 3 in a row and then get the serve right back. And then they would rattle off 2 more in a row and then get the serve right back. And then it was, it'd be then 25-18 Sebeka. It would be tied 15-15. And then it would just be this like, I'm going to go 3 for your every one, basically, is how it would go. And that's what, by the way, what good teams are able to do. Like, they're able to, once the opportunity to capitalize presents itself, they would take advantage of that opportunity pretty much. I thought they played well. I thought Browerville Eagle Valley played well. They were right in it, especially that first set. Sometimes it's funny. We saw it the other night with Sebeka and Walker Hackensack Akeley. That first set could have gone any way in these last 2 matches for Sebeka. The Trojans have won each of those sets and then have in turn just rattled off 9 straight in this section tournament. They haven't dropped a set yet. And sometimes that is enough of just like a mental blow to what you're trying to accomplish, that that you can't let down mentally against a team like Sebeka. They're just too feisty. There was a particular play in the first set. Kyla Watson made like a diving one-handed play to the near sideline, and she's not like a vaunted back row. She was serving, and when you're serving, you're in the back row. She's not, that's not her comfortable position, floating around, running around in that back row. And she made some clutch digs from that back row spot, including one where just dove and she, fly swatted it with her right hand and kept the ball up in the air. And unbelievable play that the Trojans ended up winning that point and eventually going on to win the set. The Trojans are good. Like I said, they haven't dropped a set in this 5A tournament yet. They play on Thursday night. Now tomorrow night against Pine River-Backus. Pine River-Backus dispatched of Swanville in 3 sets, 26-24, 25-18, and 25-22 were the score of those 3. Pine River-Backus, the Tigers, in as a 3 seed into the section championship, knocking off the top seeded Swanville Bulldogs. So as is always the case, I said it before last night's game. The same will be true before Thursday night's matchup. These are 2 of the most well-coached, prepared volleyball teams. Coach Pouliou and her teams are always just like they will never be in a match unprepared. And the same is true for Coach Hershey and Pine River-Backus. My favorite thing, this is my favorite thing. I'll tell the story and then we can move on. Volleyball, servers always look over to the bench. Hey, coach, where do you want me to serve this thing? And the coach behind a clipboard lets them know what spot on the court they want the ball to serve to, what zone. And every coach hides it behind a clipboard. And Coach Hershey doesn't care at all. He just, you want it zone 2? Bam! He just throws up the deuce. That's where I want it. He might turn just to be, but everybody else is hiding behind the clipboard because they don't want to see. He just
right at.
He just flashes the fingers that he wants.
He might as well just point to the specific player and be like, there, right there, right.
Doesn't, I mean, I've always wondered why it had to be such a secret.
Everybody kind of has an idea where they're going to attack you at.
Correct.
Especially once you get to later in the match, you're not fooling anybody by the 3rd set. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You know where they're going with it, typically speaking.
So that's by the way, I should mention, and we'll cover this more tomorrow, a little more in depth, but that is a 7:00 start time from Dave Galovich Gymnasium at Crosby Ironton High School in Crosby, Minnesota, right off of Highway 210.
Mm-hmm. That'll be on the Superstation tomorrow, Corey.
Indeed. And WDenaRadio.com.
And the Superstation K106 mobile app.
And in the hearts and minds of volleyball fans worldwide.
Trojan fans rejoice. Your team is in the section final. For Sebeka volleyball, I can't remember the last time, and it's just because it's not off the top of my head, but the last time they've been to a section final in volleyball, I know their baseball teams made state a few years ago, but I'm trying to, this is just now just.
Well, I haven't done that research quite yet. The last time they were in a state tournament, Verndale was also in the state tournament. So It would have been, I don't know. They played each other in the consolation match. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
They played each other for 5th place. Sebeka won that matchup over Verndale.
It's got to be 2015-ish?
Yeah, probably right in there. 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there.
Yeah, got to be sneaking up on a decade, Corey. Sneaking up on a decade ago.
Yeah. Heidi Olsen, Madison Lake for Sebeka, the Glenzes at Verndale.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few of the names that come to immediate mind.
Yeah. Some nice teams. Park Region Conference Volleyball. Experience the magic. All right. And if you want to check out our full broadcast schedule, you can go online to WDenaRadio.com. And Trojans fans, players, coaches, if you're listening to this, win this game so Corey Tackman can go to the state tournament and get himself a little mini vacation.
I love the XL Energy Center, and I will have to remind myself that I need to wear. I can't wear my dudes without socks if I go to the X because you're right on the floor. My toesy woesies get cold.
Well, you could be one of those people that sit in like the first 2 rows, but like, what's the fun in that?
Well, I'm not going to sit in the first 2 rows if I get to call it, baby.
No, they have some tables set up for radio. Like they also have they have tables set up on the ice. They also have some tables set up in like the first couple rows.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, because
That's I always sat courtside.
Some local competitors I saw, like, because I could see their station stuff were there, and meanwhile I'm sitting on ice because I see other radios sitting on ice and other media. I'm like, why would I not be right here? Like, right. But it's not quite the best angle. I mean, maybe not, but like, what's that extra 2 feet? You're not like, there's a difference like between top of the bleachers or like at the Wadena Deer Creek gym, top of the walking track, where you get the real bird's eye view versus like sitting at the scorer's table at the WDC gym or sitting like 3 rows up. You're basically in the same spot.
Never tell you, this is one of the most professionally rewarding moments of my entire radio broadcasting career. Have I ever told you this story?
No, but the way you made it sound, I want to hear it now.
State volleyball, calling a match. I don't know who. That part doesn't matter. I don't want to sound selfish, but this is about me. And some lady sits down next to me, and she's 6'5". She's the tallest woman I've seen in my entire life. She sits down next to me. She's got like Minnesota State High School League gear on, and she's got a clipboard. And she sits down for some reason. All those tables, you've been there on the media row. She is 2 chairs away from me. I don't know why she sat so close, but she did. And I realized throughout the broadcast that she is there assessing the officials.
Okay.
So I figure that out. She's taking notes on what the officials are doing. I see her then after the match get all the officials together from the match I was calling. She's giving them a few pointers, things like that. Really cool. Afterwards, after she's doing that, I'm wrapping up my post game. She walks over and she goes, "Hey, I'm like here to officiate the officials. Volleyball player my whole life, played collegiately. You did an awesome job." And I was like, "Yes, thank you."
Vindication.
Man, does that feel good to hear it from someone who's not a mom.
Right. I mean, because look, we appreciate
not my mom. I appreciate every single comment except from my mother, but it was especially good to hear it from someone who's like, "I played college volleyball. You did a great job. Thank you."
Yeah. You know, it's like you get home and your wife's like, "Oh, you had a good call." And I say this in my own experience. I get home and she'll be like, "Oh, you had a good call then." I'm like, "Thanks, but you're supposed to say that." Also,
you didn't listen. I know you didn't.
I mean, it's one thing for that, but when you have somebody who like is like, "Oh, cool. Like that was a really good."
Yes.
That was a really good call. In building one time, I had that happen. I can't remember, for a football game, doesn't matter what. I just had I remember the night before there was like a long touchdown. I just really felt good about a touchdown call I had. I think it was like just kind of a little bubble screen. Wide receiver takes it along like the sideline. And I can't remember what I all did in my call, but it's just one of those things where I remember watching a Twins game like the week before, and a bigger guy for the Twins, I think it was Solano, rips like a triple because the center fielder misses it, and all Bramer goes is, "Let's see how far he can run."
Yeah,
which I thought was a great thing for a broadcaster, because you know that he missed it, and you know that like you don't need to say he's rounding second. You just say like, "All right, everybody, like here we go." And I just remember like, "Let's see this kid run," when he got down the sideline. Anyway, the point is, I felt really good in my call. And then the next day we walk in, Dan Terhar, of course, voice of, you know, a lot of different collegiate sports and a guy who's done a lot of play-by-play, looked at me and went, "That was a really nice touchdown call." And for the rest of the day, you just go,
"Yes, got one."
And dynamite, like,
I got one. The rest of the broadcast was terrible, but I did get that.
I got the one. I got the highlight call for my tape. That's all I needed. Yeah, who cares about the rest of the game? I just got if I call every play like a highlight, then on the one highlight play of the game, I can use that for my social media cloud.
That's right.
That's right. That's how the game is played. By the way, Eminem played at the beginning of the 5th set, of course, because it's at a high school in the Midwest. Played "Lose Yourself" like as the players were walking onto the court, and you best believe, as I was coming out of break, like you turn the crowd mic up first, so you just hear doot 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 doot, and you just come in and you go, "5th set, You've only got one shot.
No, boo. Boo. Boo.
No mom's spaghetti was being thrown up in that fifth set. Just a lot of serves. All right, Corey, in state sports, the Minnesota Vikings made a trade yesterday. In the middle of your match, I still felt the need to send you that text because it was important enough, and because Zeke was also in that text, and I knew he would respond right away. But Cam Robinson, the left tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars, has been traded to the Minnesota Vikings, a second-round pick in 2017, I believe an impending free agent, and he is coming over to the Minnesota Vikings and a conditional seventh-round pick, all for the price of a conditional fifth-round pick that could become a fourth-round pick based on playing time, which if he plays what he is expected to play, it'll end up being a fourth-round pick. But it's a fifth-round pick if he gets hurt.
How is that a fair trade?
Because for 2026.
But how do the Vikings trade for a starting left tackle and get a draft pick and give up a draft pick?
Because Robinson did get benched, or like did get his playing time reduced, like in the Green Bay game, talking with our Packer fan sales guy, Jared. He said Cam Robinson was not starting for the Jaguars on Sunday. And they mentioned that a new guy was starting in his place. And I think it's just because they felt like the Jaguars, that they're developing a guy behind the scenes, because Robinson's an impending free agent. So they were like, we have his replacement and he's ready, which is also why they felt comfortable trading him to the Vikings. The Vikings did that last year with Ezra Cleveland when they traded him, because they're like, we have Reisner now, and we're going to trade Ezra Cleveland to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And because we feel like, even though this guy's a starting caliber player, we feel like we have our upgrade or our whatever. And that's what the Jaguars did. So he still is in Cam Robinson. He is all right in pass blocking, all right in run blocking. And overall, I think his grades between him and Christian Darrisaw, if you look at Pro Football Focus, which I'm not the biggest believer in, but they're just like, it's a metric. It's something we can quantifiably look at, because I'm not grinding tape for offensive linemen. But
for anyone, let's be fair.
For anyone, I'm seeing some other guy who did it, and I'm taking one clip that's going to confirm my priors, and I'm going to share it around the internet.
Correct.
That's called narrative building, ladies and gentlemen. But for the Vikings, this guy, between him and Christian Darrisaw, Christian Darrisaw has slightly better numbers on PFF, but when you look at it in the aggregate, Darrisaw's like a top 3 tackle in the league, and this guy's like 10 to 13th. So like, he is, middle of the pack.
Starter in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a starter in the NFL. And the Vikings did not have a starting left tackle, because let me put it to you this way, Corey, either option the Vikings had was moving Blake Brandel, a guard who is having a nice season, moving over to guard, go back to tackle, where he wasn't awful, but he certainly struggled a lot. I think in like 7 career games, he has like 7 sacks allowed. So not ideal for him. And then also, if he screws up, like, you ruin his confidence, like you spent a whole year developing him, then you're just going to throw him back out there. That didn't feel like that was fair to him. Or you start Dan Quessenberry, who's 34 years old and a career backup at this point, to start 10 more games for you, and likely playoff games. That's just not a great strategy either. He was not going to make it through the long haul either. You needed to add somebody to this roster, and Cam Robinson feels like the most logical fit in this situation. He's not going to be Darrisaw. Darrisaw, as we talked about, only Trent Williams really is better than him, like, throughout the league. Like, that's the only one who, it's like, if you say Trent Williams is better than him, people go, I got to push back on that, because Trent Williams might be one of the best left tackles of all time. But Christian Darrisaw is good. He's really good. And so there is going to be a step back, but this goes from going from Darrisaw to TJ Clemmings to going from Darrisaw to just, like Riley Reef or something like that, if you remember him, for the Vikings left tackle. Because with the Vikings, this gives me, remember in 2016, they started out 5-0, hit a little bump in the middle of the season, and their left tackle, TJ Clemmings, was so awful, it just completely derailed the rest of the offense, and Zimmer was a maniac, and everything happened. But it wasn't the entirety of the left tackle falling apart, but they signed Jake Long, remember that? And that just basically fell apart on impact, and it popped at the seams, did the offense, because they could not get protection from their left tackle. The Vikings addressed that, and he's not going to play this week and maybe not even next week, but you just have that option now for the rest of the season. That's a good spot for them to be in.
They were going to need to have depth on the line no matter what.
They
were going to add another name to the offensive line no matter what. whether that was bringing in a free agent of some sort to fill as a backup role. Whatever the move was, there was another offensive lineman going to be in Vikings purple by the time this week was over. So if that's the case, why wouldn't you try to build your depth on the top?
Right.
The depth was going to need to be filled. They were down an offensive lineman. You have to replace the depth there. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about yesterday, if you go out and get somebody, that means then Quesenberry can do the things that he is best suited to do, which is fill in probably everywhere on the line. He's probably even more suited as a right tackle. So if that is the case,
teams call it a swing tackle. Yeah,
correct. He can just fill in wherever he needs to. Now you have your depth because Reisner is, I would presume Reisner's back this week, or have we not heard?
I think the plan should be for him to be back. Now, if he's officially starting or not, I think the Vikings will probably wait till later in the week to say. But
the point is they've got depth in the interior now too, and they were going to have to get depth no matter what. So if you have to get depth no matter what, why wouldn't you get a guy who you think is probably a starter in this league?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's really pretty straightforward. It's a totally logical signing, and it is if the Vikings are going to get two pieces for the price of one piece, including in a year where, by the way, if they would have started this season at 1-6, like some of us in this show thought they could have, or maybe both of us, at least one of us, they're not making this trade.
Right.
They're really good and they understand that windows in sports only exist in the present, and presently this window is wide open. So you have to go get somebody. Good job.
Well, and remember the Vikings did this too in 2022, Kwesi's first year. We didn't think the Vikings were going to start off the way they did. All of a sudden they're like 6-1 through this point in the season. And what do they do? Irv Smith, he's hurt. He's not it. Go get TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. And now Hawkinson cost a second round pick, but you did extend him. So you were trading for him with the intent that you knew you were getting another year after 2022, and you were likely going to extend him.
The Vikings, almost my entire life, and more importantly, probably almost your entire life, for point of reference, have always done this.
Right.
And probably most teams do this. Do you remember the year they got Donovan McNabb and then Josh Freeman and then Sam Bradford? Like, you remember, like, those were all done hastily because in the moment those teams were in it. And you have to keep that moment alive while you have it. You just have to. And repercussions, you deal with the repercussions later.
Don't make me relive the Josh Freeman game.
I'm just saying they had to do it. It worked out very poorly. You had to do it. They had to do the Sam Bradford thing. This was a move that falls in line with that. They had to do it.
Right. Because at the end of the day, people go, well, maybe the Vikings just need to not, because, is this really their window? Yada, yada, yada. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could say to that, but it's also the fact that it's the same thing with the Colts of like, they're starting Joe Flacco on Sunday. And it's why don't they just keep Richardson out there? He needs NFL reps. Like, why are we not giving him NFL reps? Because the team is good. That Colts team, they're not like great, but they are a playoff caliber team in a weak AFC. They're trying to get into the playoffs. And I know it's probably better for the franchise if he gets his reps and takes his lumps.
Not this year.
But you're supposed to tell that left tackle or that defensive lineman who's working his tail off, sorry, we're going to not be as competitive as we can be because there's the politics of it, right? There's incentives for all of these players that if they and the team reach certain milestones, they are rewarded for it monetarily. Like, that's a big part of this. And it is also important. Richardson stinks. That guy is not.
I heard someone say the other day, he has 2 of the 5 worst throws in the entire league this year. Now, he might hit you at 72.
Like 2 of the 5 best. He's very volatile.
Right. But he has more of the bad volatility. He's not Jameis Winston, right? Jameis Winston throws 30 touchdowns and 30 picks in one season.
Winston is the perfectly balanced Thanos meme. Like, that's.
He is not. Anthony Richardson is that his name? He is not Jameis Winston. He is not getting the good that Jameis Winston can bring to the table. He's pretty much only bringing the bad.
And by the way, against the Brian Flores defense on the road in US Bank Stadium, would have ate him alive. And now Joe Flacco, a veteran quarterback who's played in a Super Bowl before, who's not going to be fazed by the US Bank Stadium crowd as much.
Going to be competitive on Sunday night.
That's going to be a problem for the Vikings. He's not going to get confused by what Flores is throwing at him. So that'll be fascinating to watch. That's an issue for another time. But back to this trade. The one other thing is the Vikings, people will talk about the Vikings and they'll say, this is, what are they doing? The Vikings don't have a lot of draft capital, and they don't. They have 3 draft picks for the 2025 draft. Now, this is a 2026 draft pick that they're sending to the Jaguars in this, which is fine because it's 2026. The guy you're drafting in 2026 in the 5th or even 4th round is not going to help you in 2026 and probably won't until 27 or 28. And who cares by that time? That's 4 years from now.
Correct.
And I know GMs need to think for the future and they need to think for this. They need to think for that. I get all of that. But it's like you talked about, Corey. They're in a window to win right now. And it's the same thing we talked about with the Colts. Like, you can't look your players in the eye and say, we're trying to win, and then do something like that. You can't look your players in the eye after the guy who, outside of Jefferson, is the best player on your team. You can't lose that guy and go, well, pick it up. Like, we'll roll the dice. Like, that's a move that says, hey, we lost that guy. We still think this team is competitive. We're bringing somebody in to make sure that we can still keep this thing rolling. Like, you have to keep that locker room together. I
forgot about Josh Dobbs. Like, that was just a year ago.
Right. You have to. It's the same thing, right? Like, you have to. People are like, why don't you just roll with Jaren Hall and lose games? You can't. That is a team trying to win. This isn't Madden. Like, you can't just go, well, cash in on this season.
No, it's just it's a totally and completely logical move. It is the thing that Kwesi does best.
Right.
And probably arguably even Spielman. Like, when you're in the moment right now, how do we make this work to extend the moment as long as possible? Now, for another conversation, another time, you only have 3 draft picks for a guy who hasn't historically drafted really well in his 3 years at the helm or 2 years at the helm, whatever it is. Like, Kwesi doesn't have a real good draft outlook right now. And to limit those options now for 3 moving forward does not look good. But one of the things this guy does is maneuver, and there will be more draft picks, whatever. That's a different conversation for a different time, but it is a topic that's out there.
Well, and the other thing is too, I mean, he trades a lot of Rick Spielman drafted a bunch of guys. He wanted 10 players every draft. Kwesi does not have that same opinion. The Vikings do not care about late round draft picks.
Which is fine, but you better hit on some of your early draft picks then, if that's the way you're going to do it.
That's fair. That is 100% fair.
Either philosophy is fine. It's not the philosophy, it's the execution. So if you only want 6 draft picks total, by golly, those first 2 picks are extra important.
And the thing that does help out the Vikings too in all this is JJ McCarthy's on his rookie contract. So let's say you can't draft a guy in the second round because you traded that draft pick. Well, you have the money to go sign a starting cornerback who you would have drafted a corner in the second round. Let's just go sign a guy, like, because you have that cap space. So it's a way to kind of maneuver it all. I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. As long as you just get the best guys in the building you can, it doesn't matter, because the Vikings have built this defense on free agents. So, all right, that's pretty much the end of this gist for that. Corey, we've just been running on this theme all week, and I don't think we have any reason to stop. So let's go back to the all-name team, this time in women's basketball.
Yay!
The first team all-name team in Division I women's basketball. You have LaCambria Shakespeare out of Alabama A&M.
Can you scroll up a little bit or down a little bit so I can't see LaCambria's full name? There we go.
LaCambria Shakespeare.
Amazing. Great countertops and pros.
That's Prose. Pros.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Last Tear Pow.
Last Tear Pow. Okay. Weird. Is it last tier? Last tier?
Last tier?
It's probably tier, right?
Well, that's true. Last tier.
I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing on these as much as you are. I'm just last tier Pow. I like it.
How about Diamond Hunter from
Diamond
Southern U?
Awesome.
Diamond Hunter's awesome. Their parents 100% knew what they were doing with that one.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. I hope that if they had a boy, they name him Big Game. So he's just Big Game Hunter.
Uh-huh.
How about Destiny Salary?
I have a name they could name her brother, but I can't say it.
We'll talk about it off air. Destiny Salary.
Yes.
That's basically they're like, you're
not going to work for an hourly rate the rest of your life, baby girl. Your destiny is salary.
Your destiny is not a manual labor job. Your destiny is middle management at an accounting firm.
What? In Western Kentucky? Okay.
Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers. Shediamond McKnight.
Yep. Great. Perfect.
Mississippi Valley State.
Yep.
Shediamond. Not to be confused with Sheboygan.
I've never seen a Shediamond in the flesh.
All right. And last one on the Corey, you were talking about this one before we started recording.
Yes, I'm so happy you came with this today because I saw this last night and I was like, I wonder if we should continue this on to the ladies of college basketball. Thelma Barbich was the first name I saw last night. That's right. That's right. You heard her last name. It depends on where you want to emphasize things that would make her name inappropriate or not. But Thelma Barbich.
And just like that, we've been demonetized on YouTube.
That's just her name. I can't get in trouble for saying
Thank you, Corey, making $0 off this episode.
That's her name.
The YouTube ad algorithm is giving us $0 for this episode.
I can't help her name. YouTube. Who's in charge of Google these days?
Alphabet. I don't know. That's the company. I don't know, man. There's like 6 different.
All right. Well, what Mr. Google? That's her name. I can't. Mr. YouTube. That's her name. I can't help it. That's
got to be number 1 on this list, right? Or do you go with Diamond Hunter?
For personal preference, I think I wouldn't name any of my children any of these names. I think the most ridiculous name is LaCambria Shakespeare.
Yeah. How about Last Tier, Pao? Pao?
Last tier is awful.
That's like I don't even know what was going on.
Yeah, last tier is really bad.
That's you ever heard of that? There's there's like a family.
Nuts in LSU. What's her face?
Angel Reese?
No. What's the coach's name there?
She's
probably awesome if that's
Kim something.
Yeah.
Oregon? I don't.
Mulkey. Right?
Yep.
Or are we just naming people locally right now who have the first name of Kim?
No, I think that's it. Jong-un? Question mark? Is that who's coaching LSU these days?
Kim Mulkey. We're right.
Yeah. There we go.
Probably awesome.
Yeah.
No, but last tier is a terrible name.
Yeah, not very good.
No offense.
No offense, but it's awful.
But your parents did an awful job.
No,
and let's take that as a nickname, in which case, awful job. Terrible.
In which case, branding, F. Take an accounting, take a marketing class.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
All right. Second team, or is there only the first team?
That's the first team. That is the first team. So, yeah, I mean, when we did the men's, I felt like it got better with the second team, or at least got more ridiculous.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. Well, I mean, heck, let's just continue this thing until the wheels fall off.
Cambria Shakespeare is the center. How tall do you think she is?
I'll go center. I don't know. I'll go 6'4", I guess.
I hope that she is an unbelievable giant with that name. Yeah, she's 6'4". Man, I was just hoping for like a 6'7" behemoth. I'm LaCambria Shakespeare.
All right. Well, we've come off the tracks. I think it's time we call her a day.
I'm done.
This has been the Morning Sports Desk for Wednesday, the 30th of October.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WDenaRadio.com.